Good afternoon, everyone. This is Dr. Gwen, and today I have a very special guest with me. Her name is Dr. Valerie Monteiro. Dr. Val and we met about 10 years ago
Yeah.
and really have stayed connected this entire time. It's wonderful, even though we didn't speak every single year or even regularly in the past, when we reconnected, it was just like connecting with an old friend. Today, I am so delighted to have Dr. Valerie with us today to talk about the energy of things. And before we get started, I am just going to have Dr. Valerie tell us. She, first of all, as you know, as you've been seeing on our Facebook invitations, she has a Doctor of Chiropractic certification, and I'm not sure she will correct me if that's not what it is supposed
No,
to
that's
say.
that's correct. It's
Okay.
a medical degree. Yes.
Okay. Right. Awesome. She practices functional medicine, which is a capacity in which she and I have been working, peripheral neuropathy. Um, she also is a co-founder of the San Antonio Neuropathic Center,
Neuropathy
Precision
center.
Sport.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for making my words make sense medically.
It's a tough word. Let me tell you, Dr. Gwen, don't be hard on yourself. So many people have difficulty pronouncing that word.
Okay. And she also does a lot of motivational speaking on health and wellness issues. And Dr. Val and I got to talking about vibration because I know as an energy healer myself, I deal with a lot of vibrational stuff when it comes to clearing energies in my life and in other people's lives. And we got to talking about the vibration of one of the oils, or it was, I can't remember whether it was a particular oil or whether it was a supplement. I think it was
Well,
a
Dr.
supplement.
Gwen, I mean, it's been so much. We've talked about food and supplements and oils and just how it all ties together.
Right. And that just completely blew my mind when I had asked you a question about a supplement and you said something about the bioavailability. But that is something we will talk about as we progress. But first of all, Dr. Val, will you just tell us a little bit about how you got started in this whole um, functional medical practice
Sure.
area?
Absolutely, I'll be happy to. Well, I've got to tell you, going back to undergrad, I always knew I was a healer ever since I was a little girl. Even though I didn't understand what that meant at the time, I knew I was a healer. I was always trying to help fix someone or something, whether it was a cat or a dog. And you know my fond disposition for
Ah,
animals, how I love all creatures, great and large, from bees to frogs to cats, dogs, whatever, you name it. So I've always known I was a healer. So I thought that meant becoming a medical doctor, which is what I was on the pathway for. Went pre-med in my undergrad, took my MCATs, did very well on my MCATs. And the year before I was getting ready to apply to medical schools, fortuitously, I was involved in a car accident with my mom.
mhm.
And we both sustained some neck injuries, some upper back injuries. And my godmother worked for a chiropractor. I had no idea what a chiropractor was, had no idea what a chiropractor did. I was like, is that even a real doctor? So my godmother said, yes, absolutely. They go to medical school just like regular doctors. And she referred me to actually not the chiropractor she worked for, a different chiropractor, which my mother and I ended up going to. So, I started realizing I was talking to people about, the medical field, and I realized, I think chiropractic is more in line with what I want to do. It's more of a natural healing. I don't want to be pushing medications. I don't want to be a legalized drug pusher for a big pharma. So, I realized, okay, I'm at a crossroads here. So the more I started learning about chiropractic, the more I realized this is the perfect fit for me. So went into chiropractic medical school and came out and practiced general chiropractic medicine for about the first 10 years. And then my mom developed lung cancer.
Mm.
And it was one of the most horrible, scariest times of my life, because not only was this my mother, but it was my best friend, my dearest, dearest friend. And I realized with her going through cancer treatment, I knew nothing. I knew nothing. I had no idea what to do for her. And it was such a helpless, hopeless feeling sensation. And I said to myself, I will never be in this position again where I can't fully help the people that I love the most. And that's how I discovered functional medicine. And I got into functional medicine, which is the art of treating diseases and illnesses holistically, with lifestyle changes, with energy medicine, with vitamins, with supplements, and only using medications as an absolute last resort when there is no other choice. And even then, medication should only be used short term while we're fixing the problem, if and when necessary. So that's how I got on this incredible road. Both Dr. Coppola, my husband, and I ended up specializing in peripheral neuropathy because in my mom's battle with cancer, she developed what's called chemotherapy-induced peripheral neuropathy, which is massive damage to a sector of nerves from the chemotherapy. And every doctor said there is no cure. She just has to live with it. And it was debilitating. It was worse than the cancer. And I said, there's no way. I know how the body heals. I know there has to be a way. We just don't know it. So started doing major research, realized in Europe and in parts of Asia for well over 50 years, they have been successfully reversing peripheral neuropathy. So I gathered all of their research material, everything that they did, applied it to my mom, and it worked like a charm, reversed her peripheral neuropathy. So then we brought it into our clinic with 24 million people suffering from this condition. We started having people seeking us out to help them. So that's the short story of how I ended up down this road. So, that's how I really specialize in both functional medicine and peripheral neuropathy. They're both near and dear to my heart.
Yes, and I can tell that you're really very passionate about it. And I can say really very competent about searching out and using those recommendations that are best for people to get better, not just to put a patch over what's going on. Now, I want to revert back to something you said, because I feel like our audience need to have a better picture of who you are. Now, you
Sure.
talked about your animal friends, and it is like that blows my mind. I don't even want to begin to share from my perspective what that is. I'll let you tell the story. Why don't you just spend a couple of minutes sharing about your awesome animal kingdom?
Okay. Gosh, where to begin, Dr. Gwen? Where to begin?
Oh man.
Well, I'll tell you. My passion for animals started with my mom. She was very passionate about animals and all creatures. The only creature that she never liked, she had a mild phobia to, were spiders. Why? I don't know, but maybe in a past life or something, she had an incident with spiders, but she was terrified of spiders. Outside of that, she raised me to have a profound respect and just love for any mammal, cats, dogs, you name it, bears, big cats, wild cats, it doesn't matter. She also taught me how to respect and enjoy reptiles and amphibians. She loved to garden. So in the garden, she would come across garden snakes, and she'd grab them and call me over and say, here, and hand them to me, so that I never had a fear of them. So, from the time I was very young, I was handling snakes and frogs and lizards and, that type of thing. We would, pet a praying mantis in the house or a grasshopper and release it. And so, my love for animals, I hate to say animals because it's really all species.
All
when I think
creatures.
of animals, all creatures, we think of mammals. And yes, I have a profound love for mammals, but, I really do. I told you the story of how there are two cats down the road that are, they actually have a human, but the human is a little carefree with them, so doesn't show them a lot of attention. So I go down there every day. I sit with them in their driveway. I play with them. I give them love. They had never had love, didn't know how to respond to affection. And I bring them treats. And in the process, I always, I'm known for attracting bees. So I have bees buzz around me, and it doesn't bother me. I love them, actually. And they know that I love them. And that's the reason I've never been stung to this day. That's what I said. So, many times I'll be sitting there and I'll have a bee land on my hand and just crawl on my fingers. And I discovered, I discovered that bees like turkey. I would bring sliced turkey down for these cats, and the bees were looking at the turkey. So I'd put out little pieces of turkey, and they would chisel away at it and fly off with it, and then come back, and I'd have another piece ready. So yeah, so I just, I love all creatures, great and small.
Right,
I tell people,
Dr. Val. Sorry to break in, because we're not. I want to give people like big. How many animals? you like just a big picture view of all of that, because it's really clear that you love animals, and we could talk about that completely on another show. But since we are dealing with the frequencies and the vibration of foods, I just want people to know how many animals are you taking care of? Like in your backyard, where do you get these animals? Just real quickly, tell us about that.
All right. So in Texas, we have a herd of wild deer. They struggle in the summertime horribly because of the drought. So we went out and bought a 500-pound deer feeder, and we always keep that filled with protein pellets. We never use corn, because corn is like feeding your child candy every day. So corn's not good for them. We have a 150-gallon water trough for the wildlife. That includes squirrels, coyotes, deers, foxes, rabbits, whoever needs water. We have bird baths all over our property for birds and squirrels. We've got bird feeders all over our property for birds and squirrels. We take care of the chipmunks. So there is no limit. Now we're caring for 2 goats. They don't belong to us, but we're helping to care for 2 goats who are just the most adorable little babies. So yeah, so like I said, Dr. Gwen, if it has a heartbeat and it needs us, we're there. It doesn't matter what species.
That's just awesome. And we as humans, we have a heartbeat, and you're there for us as well. So let's transition right over into this whole thing about energy. We know everything is energy, and if it is energy, there's frequency, vibration, resonance, and all of that good stuff. And now we're talking about vibration. What is that? Because people have heard a lot of that in with this whole thing about revealing or attracting what you want. So what is vibration?
Yeah, absolutely.
In layman's terms.
Okay. So, there are a couple of terms that are used interchangeably that tends to really confuse people. So it's important to understand the overlap. So let me go through each of those right now. So I want to talk about energy, vibration, and frequency, because again, we all use those interchangeably, but there is some difference to them. So when we're talking about vibration, vibration measures the intensity of the energy flow, whereas frequency measures the rate that the energy will vibrate at. And when you're measuring this rate, it's measured in hertz. So the higher the frequency something has, the higher the vibration. So what this actually means is that, every object will contain an energy that's more powerful if its frequency is very high and it's vibrating at a very high level. And I love this. We tend to think of energy and vibration as something new, and it's not. It has been around through the ages, as you said, Dr. Gwen. So, I think it's really incredible how Albert Einstein stated, and this is a direct quote, everything is energy, and that's all there is to it. Those were his words. He says, and that's all there is to it. And then Nikola Tesla, who, we all love, we're really embracing Tesla technology in this day and age. Nikola Tesla said, if you want to find the secrets of the universe,
Mhm.
Think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. So
Absolutely.
everything is made of energy, frequency, and vibration. It doesn't matter if it's an animate object like a living creature or if it's an inanimate object like this computer and the desk that we're using. Everything has frequency, everything has vibration.
Right. That is powerful. And I don't know that many people really grasp the full power of that, because in that statement that you just made, which I've quoted several times on several different platforms, lie that in that statement, or in those two statements, lie the healing capabilities and the magic that exist
That's
in our
right.
world, that should we tap into those sources, we will be able to have full access to a lot of the things that we need. But now,
Absolutely. And
yeah,
control of our
and
health.
completely.
Yeah.
So how do
Go ahead.
yes, go ahead.
I was going to say, what's really amazing is we know that the human body is alive, right? And we tend to think of the human body as one unit. This is my body. I know I have an arm. I know I have a leg, but right, overall, this is my body. We forget that our body is made up of trillions and trillions of cells, and each one of these cells has their own vibration. They each have their own frequency.
Mm,
So, I think this is really, really interesting, Dr. Gwen, because when you look at the human body or a healthy body will vibrate at the frequency of 62 to 78 megahertz, not hertz, megahertz. Now, there's a big difference between hertz and megahertz. So 1 megahertz equals 1 million hertz. So we're talking the body vibrates at 62 to 78 megahertz. Now, that's a healthy body. When you're dealing with a sick body, then our vibration begins to lower. So let me give you a couple of examples. For instance, for someone that has colds and flus, colds or a flu, their vibration will drop to about 57 to 60 megahertz. A body that is vulnerable to cancer, meaning a body that can develop cancerous tumors. Cancer develops because this body is already vibrating at a low vibration. So for cancer to develop, the vibration of the body has to drop to about 42 megahertz. Cancer cannot develop in a body that's vibrating at 70, 78 megahertz. Just can't do it. It can't stay alive. And then the death of the body begins when the vibration of the cells drop to 25 megahertz. So this is really the point of no return, where the body cannot come back once the vibration drops that low.
So let me ask you this. How can people tell, or can they at home, what their body is vibrating at?
Oh, that's a great question. I'm so glad you asked that. Okay, well, there are a couple of different things you can do. There are a few devices on the market, like there is one called the HVM 200 that will measure your body's frequency, and it will tell you where your body is vibrating at. But I have to tell you, Dr. Gwen, I'm not really a big fan of this device because it incorporates Wi-Fi. And the minute you're in the presence of Wi-Fi, especially you're using it in that close proximity to your body, you are going to disrupt and lower your cell's
Your energy.
vibrational frequency. So, I'm not a big fan of that. Plus, you got to spend money on it to buy it. What I do recommend, which will cost absolutely nothing, is doing something like the standing sway test, or using applied kinesiological muscle testing. And you can go on YouTube. There are a couple of doctors out there that do an excellent job at describing exactly how to do it. Dr. Jim Clausen, Claussen, he describes how to do the standing sway test, very simple. And Dr. Sten Ekberg has a great video to teach you how to do the applied kinesiological muscle testing. So you can use either one of these to determine exactly in any moment, any given time, where your body is vibrating at. Now, I've got to tell you, because I think this is really, really cool, Dr. Gwen, and I don't know if you know this, you'll have to share this with me if you did. I just recently found out that Jesus's vibration was well above 1,000 megahertz. I mean, that just blows my mind. I mean, we know we talk about Christ energy, Christ light, but 1,000 megahertz. We're talking about a healthy
That's
body
pretty
vibrates
high.
at 78, but 1,000 megahertz. And Gandhi's vibration was actually measured at between 850 to 900 megahertz. Now, I test my own vibration on a regular basis, and I do spot checks to make sure that I'm maintaining my vibration where it needs to be. And normally I'll vibrate anywhere between about 77 to 80 megahertz. So, that's considered very good. But when you look at Gandhi and Jesus, I still have a ways to go in comparison to them. So, I'm still going to keep working it.
It's certainly a process, isn't it? Now,
It is.
could you, I was writing down the name of this Stan Ekberg, you said, could you spell that last name for others?
Yes, it's Sten. It's spelled S as in Sam, T as in Tom, E, N as in Nancy. And his last name, Ekberg, it's E as in elephant, K as in kite, B as in boy, E as in elephant, R as in Ralph, G as in girl. Dr. Sten Ekberg.
Okay, thank you. I
You're
will
welcome.
make sure that's on the screen so that others can access it. All right, so we have spoken about vibration and figuring out what our body's vibration is. Now, we also, from what you said earlier, that our bodies and the food that we eat, the products even that we use, influence our vibration.
Yes.
So how can we select, what is the process that you recommend for us to know the vibration of the foods or the products that we're selecting?
Okay, so that's a great question. And this is such an important question, Dr. Gwen, because you're right. Foods will definitely affect our vibration, and the two of them go hand in hand. So, it's important that we recognize when we're dealing with foods, there are two different categories of food. And this is how I teach my patients because I think it makes it easier for them to grasp a hold of. There's what we call living food, and then there's dead food. So the difference between the two is living food contains all of its natural enzymes, which helps us digest about 40 to 60% of that particular food. So for example, fruits and vegetables are living foods. On the other hand, dead foods are any foods that have been stripped of their natural enzymes. So when you cook, package, or process foods, you turn them into dead foods because their natural enzymes have been destroyed. And this includes frozen foods. Many people, are under the impression that, if I go and get frozen broccoli, that's just as good as me eating fresh broccoli. No, because the process of freezing them, even the flash freezer, it really destroys those enzymes. And now you have a dead food, which is going to have a lower vibrational level. The other thing I want to mention that people don't realize is when you pasteurize beverages or foods, you take a living food. So let's say you take an orange and you freshly squeeze orange juice. That is a living food, living juice. You then pasteurize that orange juice and you put it on the grocery store shelf. You've just turned it into a dead food. So not only is it devoid of nutrition, which is why they're putting in synthetic vitamins and supplements and nutrients into it, and it gets oxidized, but the vibration drops down to next to nothing. So, and that's because the pasteurization process requires heating, and that will destroy all of the enzymes. So it's important to make sure that we're staying with living foods and staying away from dead foods. So let me give you an example for some of the vibrations. When we look at fresh herbs will vibrate at about 20 to 27 hertz, which is excellent. This is excellent. So, you're talking about fresh basil, fresh rosemary, thyme, any herbs that, you can come in contact with. And, when I'm talking about herbs, I'm also talking spices as well, turmeric, ginger, that type of thing. Once you dry these fresh herbs or spices, that vibration is going to drop from 20 to 27 to 12 to 22. So you're cutting it almost in half just by the process of drying it. You're still getting health benefits, but it's not as power packed as the fresh herbs. With fresh produce, your fresh produce is going to vibrate at about 15 hertz. So I love to talk about the food that has the highest vibration on the planet because it's so under-recognized, and that's sprouts and microgreens. So whether you're dealing with broccoli sprouts, radish sprouts, sunflower sprouts, microgreens like micro arugula, micro spinach, or whatever the case is, they're going to have the highest vibration on the planet, Dr. Gwen, because these are actually baby plants at the prime of their growth. And because of that, it raises their vibration immensely, not to mention the fact that it makes them nutrient dense. Now, I do want to tell you, before your viewers, your Facebook followers start running out to the grocery store and buying up all of the broccoli sprouts and the sprouts on the shelves, the first thing I'm going to say is don't waste your money. Unfortunately, that vibration will only stay high in the sprouts once the plant has sprouted and for 5 days. After 5 days, the nutrients goes down because the plant gets oxidized, the vibration goes down as well. So sprouts and microgreens that you're getting on the grocery store are not going to have the same high vibration, the same nutrient dense vitamins and minerals that you're going to get in fresh green. But the really cool thing is I don't know if you've ever done this, Dr. Gwen, it is so easy to sprout your own, broccoli sprouts. You buy the seeds, you sprout them. Literally, you can sprout them. Once they sprout, you can use them for 5 days. You can freeze what's left over, and you can freeze them for up to 3 weeks and maintain them. So you continue throwing them in smoothies. And there are so many, channels on YouTube that go over how to sprout greens that any one of your viewers can look them up. But, I am a big fan of sprouting them yourself because you're going to get the biggest bang for your dollar.
So yeah, I get that. And then now I'm thinking as I'm listening to you, it's like, oh my goodness, we're doomed. Because now, I mean, the foods
it's hard not to feel that way.
Shelves, the foods are on the grocery shelves, right? And you just taught us that if we buy the broccoli and the sprouts in the store, then they're not as high in nutrient value, and that if we sprout the stuff ourselves and we freeze it, then did you say that nutrient goes down too, or when we freeze it?
No, when they're freezing vegetables, when they're flash freezing vegetables and keeping them for a long time, because you can freeze vegetables without harming them, but they are flash freezing vegetables at sub-zero temperature. So that makes a difference. So commercial freezing versus using your own freezer, there's a bit of a difference.
Thank you for clarifying that. That makes a lot of sense. So a lot of the foods, in essence, that we're eating are dead foods. Because, Dr. Val, I'm going to be very honest with you. And you just know the way I think about some of these things. Like the raw diet is something that I have never tried doing on my own. So like 100%. Right. I like a nice hot cooked meal. I really seriously do. And I'm sure that there are a lot of people out there who are watching this interview who has the same perspective, right?
Absolutely.
There are people who have the same perspective. So what do we do? What is the middle ground? There has to be a way for us to enjoy our hot meals and at the same time get the nutrients that we need. What do you recommend?
So I'm so glad that you asked, okay? Because that really is important. First of all, there was a big trend probably about 10, 20 years ago for raw foodist. And it's important. You want to eat as much of your food raw as you can. For instance, green leafy vegetables, salads, that type of thing. But unfortunately, Dr. Gwen, because of the way we've developed, because of the way we've assaulted our GI tract, even though in ancient times, raw food would be the way to go. That's where you're going to get the most energy. Our digestive tracts can't handle an all raw food diet. I've had patients come into me who are raw foodists, and I'm like, we've got to mix this up a little bit, guys. So I am not recommending everyone, ditch this and go all raw food, but I am recommending you do need to incorporate more raw food into your diet. I mean, you should be having a nice big salad. When I look at people and I look at their plates, they're like, oh, I eat vegetables every day. And Dr. Gwen, like, they're eating this much vegetables, like half a cup at best. I am so sorry. I thought I had my phone on airplane mode. Let me put it on airplane mode right now. There we go. Okay. But yeah, so, you want to make sure you have at least 2 big salads a day. Get in that raw food that you can. But yes, most of us, including myself, we cook. We are used to cooking our food. And there's a way that you can cook and you can preserve the nutrients. It is never going to be as nutrient packed as it is raw. Okay, but that's just the life that we have. And there are things we can do to mitigate that, Dr. Gwen. There are things we can do that when we have a food that's lost its energy, to raise its energy. And I'll get to that in just a minute. But so let me answer the question. So how do you have a nice hot meal? You can still have wonderful hot meals. You just have to learn how to cook on low heat. We are used to, we're in a society. I want it now. I want it yesterday. Forget now. I want it yesterday, right? Let's go. Let's move. So we put a pan on the stove. We crank that heat up to the flames high, right? Or it's up to 8 or 9 if you have an electric stove. We put something in the oven. We crank that oven on up to 350 degrees, 375 degrees. Well, you may have taken a food and there is no life left in it. It's completely dead, and there's very little nutrition left in it outside of calories and some protein. So you want to start utilizing low heat cooking. And this was a principle that I discovered about 15 years ago that has really changed my life and changed my health. So in our household, if we're cooking stovetop, we never cook anything above a medium heat is the highest that we go. And usually, Dr. Gwen, I am only using medium heat to preheat my pan. Once the pan is preheated, I'm taking it down to a low simmer. Okay, so I'm using low heat. And that includes oil, because olive oil cannot handle even a medium heat. You will break it down and degrade it. So we need to get used to stovetop cooking with a medium heat. In the oven, we need to get used to cooking with low heat. I do not cook anything in my oven above 190 degrees. This is 100. The highest. 100.
1 minute. 190 degrees.
190.
So can we pause a little bit on that one?
Sure.
Please. So what are you cooking in your oven at 190? That is the warming temperature, isn't it? How do you
170 to 175 is actually considered the warming. And yes, experts would actually argue that you really shouldn't be cooking above 118 degrees, but that you can't even get an oven to go down to 118. So, okay, so here's why I don't cook above 190. And very often I'll cook at about 180, 185. Now, and this is more so, as you know, Dr. Gwen, I no longer eat meat, but back when I was eating meat, poultry, that is, I would eat poultry and fish. That would go in the oven at about 185, 190. It takes longer. I just plan ahead. If it's something larger, like I'm cooking for a large get together, I'll put it in the oven overnight and I'll let it sit there at 190, overnight, the way our mothers cook turkeys, right? I don't know about your mom, Dr. Gwen, but my mom, that turkey went in the night before at about 9 p.m. at night and cooked throughout the night at about 190. She didn't even, realize that there was significance to that. That's just how they had been taught. That's what you want to do so it doesn't dry out. And then you have this nice succulent turkey, going on. But the reason you want to do that is you're preserving the enzymes in the food, which we need for digestion. That's why so many people are plagued with digestive disorders. We're talking tens of millions of people. That's why there's a major industry on antacids, proton pump inhibitors, Nexium, Prilosec, that type of thing to help you digest your food. Well, you've cooked the heck out of it, right? So you don't have enough digestive enzymes in the food, let alone in your own digestive tract. That's number one. Number two, when you've caused that food to really become dead food and you've cooked the heck out of it, when you eat it, in order to digest it, your body has to pump up your white blood cells to break it down and digest it. That puts an enormous strain on your immune system. So, that's why when we're 20 years old, Dr. Gwen, we can eat anything we want, any garbage we can pollute our body with. And, usually it doesn't take a toll. But I can't tell you how many times I hear from patients, and when they turn 40, they're like, Doc, I don't know what it is, Ever since I turned 40 years old, my health has been all downhill. There's nothing magical about the number 40. It's 40 years of putting toxins and garbage in your body. And I'm not even just talking about bad food, but I'm also talking about how we destroy even the good food we eat. How many times have you gone to a restaurant or someone's house and, they give you a piece of broccoli and they go to put it on your plate, right? And we'll pretend this is the broccoli, and right, the broccoli does this. It can't even stand on its own. It's so limp and wilted. So again, we've really killed the nutrients and we're making it harder for our body to digest it. So that's why 190 when you're baking.
So now, yes, that does make sense about the preserving the enzymes and stuff. That's going to require, because you know what, sometimes I like to bake my little cakes. And
Yep.
I don't know that will happen in a 190-degree oven, but I could try.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. I tell
another
people,
thing, though, Dr. Val, the broccoli piece was running through my mind when you were talking about cooking at low heat, because here's what I find, and maybe you can share something, another perspective with me. Usually when I'm doing the fresh broccoli, I will turn up the stove, get the pot really, really hot, and then I will put the broccoli in and put in whatever the ingredients and leave it going high for just a short period of time. This way my broccoli is nice and green and crisp when
good.
I take it out.
And that's
So,
perfectly fine. If
okay,
that broccoli is nice and crisp and it's green, it's not starting to turn that greenish brown, you're in
no.
the good zone.
Okay,
Okay.
good. Well,
Yep.
yes, I appreciate you clarifying that, because I was thinking, well, because if I cook it slowly, usually it sogs, and I don't like the soggy broccoli.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Yeah. And,
okay,
and, and you don't want it soggy because you're reducing the vibration and you're reducing the nutrient capacity of it as well.
okay, yeah, yeah. Okay, so let's move on here, because I know we still have a number of great things to talk about, including the food, like the diet and supplements. How do those affect our vibration? You already talked about food, but what about
Yeah.
supplements? Because, and
Okay.
before you address that, the specific thing that got me queued up was one of the supplements that I was taking had a certain number of milligrams, and another one had a number that was lower. And you had
Yeah.
talked about the bioavailability. Here I was thinking that if something has 400 milligrams, it is definitely more potent than the one with 300 or 250. But
Yep.
is that so or not so in your book? It seems.
Yeah, so it's not cut and dry. When you don't have tools available to you, for instance, like we talked about, how do you check the vibration of food? How do you check the vibration of supplements? How do you check the vibration of essential oils? Well, right now, most of your viewers probably don't have those tools, but when you learn the kinesiological muscle testing or the sway test, literally, Dr. Gwen, I go into the grocery store and, I've often wondered how many people are watching me and go, what the heck is that woman doing? Because literally I'm picking up food and I'm muscle testing it, right?
Yeah.
So I'm shopping at Whole Paycheck, I mean, Whole Foods. And, when I shop at Whole Foods, you're paying prime dollar and I'm buying organic. So it's not cheap. I can't tell you how many times I've brought in produce home and within 2-3 days, it's going dead.
Yeah.
It's rotting. And I'm like, I just bought this just a couple of days ago. So, now I realize, okay, I don't care what I look like. This is my health. This is my
I
body.
hear you.
So before I put it in the cart, I'm muscle testing it.
Me
I'm
too.
muscle testing it. Is it right? Is
You're
this still
standing
living?
there and
Does
it's
this
like,
have, is it nutrient packed, right? So don't be ashamed to do that, because at the end of the day, it is your health that you're looking at. So before we get into supplements, I want to mention one thing, Dr. Gwen. I want to make sure not to forget about it. I want to
okay.
talk about water, because water
Mm,
is so vital to the human body, and it is so important. And I'm not going to have the chance to get into great detail, because literally, Dr. Gwen, we could do a whole talk just on water, and we need to do that sometime, because it is fascinating what you will learn.
definitely.
But no
Definitely.
one
We
should
can have
ever
you come
drink
back.
tap water. Oh, absolutely. Tap water is totally dead, totally dead. And when we do the topic on water, I will explain why it's dead water. So no one, I don't care how much your city says we have the cleanest tap water. It's not just about it being clean, being free of toxins, chlorine, pharmaceutical drugs, but it's about it being alive or it being dead. Municipal tap water is all dead water. So
Right.
people should really focus on spring water, or if they use a water generator system that will restructure the water molecules, those are very good. Most people don't have those. So a good quality spring water is really what a person needs to be hydrating with, because that's going to have a much higher vibration. And let's face it, more than 78% of our body is made of water. So we need to be feeding it with high vibration water. So I just wanted to make sure that I mentioned that. The last
Right.
thing I want to
Okay.
mention before we leave foods, Dr. Gwen, too, is so you can take foods like fresh berries, fresh greens, onions, and that type of thing. But if you're buying them conventionally, if they are not organic, the vibration is going to be so low, Dr. Gwen, because the moment you expose that produce to GMOs, or you expose it to pesticides, herbicides, or fungicides, you drop the vibration so low, and in some cases, you wipe the vibration out completely. Now, I do understand that not everyone can afford to buy organic, because sadly, it is a lot more expensive to buy organic. So if you can't afford to buy organic, I always tell my patients, at least get the Dirty Dozen organic. If you go to Google and you Google the Dirty Dozen, it will take you to the Environmental Working Group. And it's a list of the top 12 fruits and vegetables that are highly sprayed with pesticides, herbicides, and fungicides. So I always tell my patients, if you can't afford to buy organic and you want those, like apples are always around number 1 or number 2. If you love apples, you got to buy it organically. If you can't afford to buy it organically, do not eat it at all. Right.
And the
So
way, yeah, sorry to butt in here. And the way a lot of people look at it, oops, is the expense of the thing. Oh, I thought I had closed this window. My goodness, that would have ended our broadcast. But the thing about it is, our health is premium, right?
that's
And we
right.
can pay now and enjoy our lives,
Yep.
or pay later with illness, landing in the hospital and feeling pain all over our body and not enjoying the quality of life. So I do
Absolutely.
completely get that.
Yeah.
I sorry to interrupt. I let you finish that thought, and then I want to talk about essential oils and pain.
Okay. Absolutely. Okay. So in essential oils, you've got to love essential oils. Essential oils have some of the highest vibrational frequencies of any natural substance known to man, Dr. Gwen. So remember, we talked about when we were talking about fruits and vegetables and herbs, and we were saying that, they would vibrate at about 27 hertz. Essential oils vibrate in the megahertz. Okay. So that's millions of hertzes for the essential oils. So way above even what our food is vibrating at. And they can range anywhere from 52 megahertz all the way on up to 580 megahertz. This
My
is
goodness,
huge. So
that's
what's
a
that?
lot.
It
I
is.
didn't know
That's
that was a
absolutely
lot.
huge. Now, there's only one essential oil that I've come across that vibrates this high at 580 megahertz, and that's Idaho blue spruce. And Idaho blue spruce is used a lot to relax the body, but it's great also for releasing emotional blocks, and it helps restore balance and peace. And that makes sense once you understand that it's vibrating at
That high.
580 megahertz, right? That high. And it will also relieve stress and tension. Now, this essential oil is pretty expensive. So, I don't recommend people run out and purchase it to relieve stress and tension, because there are a lot more affordable essential oils that you can do to do that. But if you've got to release some emotional blocks, help restore balance and peace, man, Idaho blue spruce is the way to go. The next one below it is rose, which vibrates at 320 megahertz. All these essential
I
oils
have
are
heard of
in the
rose.
megahertz, right? So rose is important for so many. It works as an antidepressant. It has a sedating balance to it. It helps fight anxiety. It will relieve spasms and reduces inflammation. Again, I would not recommend rose. It's more expensive to treat spasms and inflammation, because there are less expensive essential oils you can use to do that, like peppermint and wintergreen. Those are going to be wonderful for your pain, your inflammation, and it's not going to cost you an arm and a leg. You're not going to break the bank when you
Yes.
look at that. So, peppermint essential oil vibrates at about 78 megahertz, which is still high. We may look at 78 and go, well, it's not 580. Yeah, but most essential oils don't vibrate that high. There are only a
Yeah.
few. 78 megahertz is very, very high. Our healthy body resonates at 78 megahertz. Peppermint oil is great for pain, headaches, muscle aches, joint pain, itching. It reduces stress, and it improves mental clarity as well as wintergreen oil. What I love about wintergreen oil, I grew up, my grandparents always had a bottle of wintergreen rubbing alcohol around. And they
My
would
mom
always
too.
use it to, your mom too, right? They'd use it to rub into their joints for arthritis and stuff, right? Wintergreen is so powerful. It has a strong analgesic and anti-inflammatory property. And research studies have shown that it is so effective as an anti-arthritic formula. So for people that have arthritis, muscle and joint pain. And I don't know if you're aware of this, Dr. Gwen, for our peripheral neuropathy, we created our own pain cream formula. And we created it out of all essential oils because we wanted it to be clean. We didn't want any toxic chemicals in it. And, we use wintergreen, we use peppermint because they're so helpful. We also use another one called helichrysum. Helichrysum vibrates much higher, 181 megahertz. So helichrysum is known to really help nerve pain. And what's really phenomenal about it, Dr. Gwen, is it helps in nerve regeneration as well. So not only is it bringing down nerve pain, but it's helping the nerves to regrow healthy nerves. So that's a big bonus, and it's going to decrease inflammation. And then
Yeah.
one
So
I certainly
I'm sorry. Go ahead. You
Oh, I
have
was going to
one
say,
more
one I
because
certainly don't want to leave out is
yeah.
frankincense, right?
Ah,
Frankincense,
yes.
ultimate healing, that resonates at a vibration of 147 megahertz, anti-inflammatory, antiseptic, decreases anxiety. I mean, I could go on and on about frankincense, so many uses. But when you're thinking about pain, think wintergreen, peppermint, helichrysum. Those are not going to break the bank. Helichrysum is a little more expensive than peppermint and wintergreen, but not horribly. Helichrysum is going to run about the same as frankincense. Those are going to be your big key players. Of course, rose, blue Idaho spruce are wonderful. They're going to be a little more expensive. Lavender is a great all-around essential oil. It vibrates at 118 megahertz, and you can use for anxiety, sleep. It promotes relaxation. But those are going to be your biggest key players.
Yeah, and there's so many essential oils that it would be impossible for us to really go through them all. And I
It
appreciate
is.
this short list that you have given us. Now, the for the people who are out there who are not familiar with energy and how it works, and with the essential oils and the foods, your presentation has helped to open the eyes a little bit wider. And now when you consider using you did say at the beginning that each body's cell vibrates at a different frequency. And
Correct.
so what that got me thinking about when I apply an essential oil to a spot that needs healing. So let's look at this for a moment. When your body is ill, the frequency it's vibrating at is low.
Correct.
And do you apply an essential oil closer to that frequency to make the cell get better, or do you apply one that is higher to raise the vibration? And as I'm asking that, I'm hearing the answer, but I still would like for you to address it.
Both. It's not a simple answer, both. So the best advice I can give people is your body ultimately knows what it needs. Okay. There are times where it is not appropriate. Like there would be times where it would not be appropriate for me to go out and apply rose oil, as wonderful as it is, or to apply the blue Idaho spruce, because my body would not have the capability of elevating that high, and it would put too much stress on my body. Okay. So what you want to do is use the sway test, use the applied kinesiological test to determine which essential oil is best for me to use right now. And you can do that just by the simple muscle testing. So, and that's why I want people to go look at those YouTube channels, because it's so easy to do that. And your body's going to tell you, this is what you need to do. And you don't have to apply it over the spots. Let's say you're having kidney problems. You don't have to worry about getting it on the kidneys. If you're having a heart problem, you don't have to worry about getting it on the heart. Diffuse it in the room, inhale it, do a steam inhalation. It will still work just as effectively within the body. But the key to your question, Dr. Gwen, is you need to ask your body, because otherwise it's simply a guessing game. Okay, which one do I need
Absolutely.
now? You need to, and then also become more in tune with your body. For instance, a long time before I knew any of this stuff, before I started operating in the functional medicine world, I used to use essential oils because they were natural, they weren't toxic, and they smelled good, right? I had no idea the medicinal benefits that they had, right? That's why I used them. I came across one by Oricacia called Tranquility. And Dr. Gwen, I would put this oil up to my nose, and oh my gosh, I was in heaven, absolute heaven. I was like, I don't know what the heck it is about this essential oil. So there were days where I couldn't even get out of the house, and I had my medical assistants or office manager calling me from the practice, and there were already fires to put out before I even get into the practice. So before I even get there, I'm now in a bad mood, right? I'm driving to the office and I'm in a bad mood. Well, I learned this one essential oil, Tranquility, would turn my mood around in a heartbeat. Didn't know how, didn't know why. I just knew it worked. So I would call my office manager and go, yeah, today's not a good day. Put the Tranquility in the diffuser. They'd have my office all fixed up. They'd have the diffuser going. And literally within 5 minutes, my mood would turn around like that. So I had no clue what I was doing with it, but I listened to my body. And when I smelled it, my body went, ooh, this feels good. I don't know what that means, but I'm just going to roll with it. So we just need to learn to listen to our bodies more.
That is wonderful. Yes, that is absolutely wonderful. And that's just the way to do it, listening to our bodies, because our bodies know what's best. And so that's a really good note to end on. And Dr. Val, I would like for you to give your contact information out so that people who would like to reach out to you to learn more or for your services would be able to do that. So how can we reach you?
People can either email me at info@Nuforia, and that's spelled NUPHORIA.com, or they can always call my office at my toll-free number, which is 844-400-0101.
Okay, awesome. And you also have a YouTube channel. Why don't you tell us about that so
You
people
bet.
could go over and watch what you're about?
I'd be glad to. The YouTube channel is called The Nerve Doctors, and it's with myself and Dr. Coppola. And we spend a lot of time educating people about peripheral neuropathy, how to recover from peripheral neuropathy, how things in our life damage your nerves. And that includes, nerves anywhere in the body, whether we're talking about brain and, the incidence of Alzheimer's, or nerves in the feet or the legs. So we're doing a broad-based education because, Dr. Gwen, these people are being told by doctor after doctor that their condition is permanent when it's not. It's simply that the doctor doesn't know how to reverse it. So the doctor's sentencing them to a life sentence of pain and disability. So we're teaching them how to take control of their health back. So,
Okay.
we're talking about peripheral nerves, but we go very broad as well.
So it's the Nerve Doctor, and that's
The
on
nerve
YouTube. So
doctors,
if you
plural.
Nerve Doctors,
Yes.
and you can find Dr. Val on YouTube and at info@newforia.com.
Correct.
Thank you, Dr. Val, for stopping by and chatting with
Our
us. And
pleasure. Thank
hopefully,
you, Dr. Gwen. It is always a pleasure to spend time with you.
very much the same here. And hopefully, you guys who have been watching us have been able to take some notes and to refer back to them later to find out how you can take control of your health, the foods you eat, the essential oils that you may use, and how you can actually use those to help to extend your health and your life and longevity. Thank you, Dr. Val, and thanks everybody for joining us.
Thanks for having
Take
me, Dr.
care now.
Gwen. Take care. Bye-bye now.
Bye bye.